Narnavaya Vishvodaya Sthitilayo Niyatipradaaya Jnanapradaya Vibudha Surasaukhya Dukkha Satkaranaya Vitataya Namo Namaste Asidudara Gunavari Prameya Narayana Paratamah Paramatsa Ekah Samshanta Samvitakilam Jakare Nidhaya Lakshmi Bhujantaragata Swarato Pichakri तस्योदरस्थ जगतः सदमन्दसान्द्रस्वानन्दतुष्टवपुषो विरमारमस्य भूत्यै निजाश्रितजनस्य हि सृज्यसृष्टा वीक्षा बभूव परनामनिमेषकान्ते नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये महत्वात् भारवत्वात् च महाभारतमुच्यते निरुक्तमस्य यो वेद सर्वपापैः प्रमुच्यते यदिहास्ति तदन्यत्रायन्नेहास्ति न कुत्रचित् देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुश्चागीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि लेशतः लक्ष्मीनारायणं नत्वा पूर्णबोधान् गुरूनपि कुर्मः श्रीकृष्णगीतायाः भाष्यादुत्तार्थसङ्ग्रहम्। हरि ओम्. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the weekly Pratipadartha session of the Bhagavad-Gita shlokas. Today we are looking at shloka number 21 of the 5th Adhyaya. Shraddha ji has provided a link under the room title. This is a quite useful website that we refer just to help ourselves, familiarize with some of the words that are given. So click on the link, we will be directly taken to the shloka number 21. Before we talk about shloka number 21, a quick recap in terms of where exactly we are with the Bhagavad-Gita, right? So we know on the first chapter, Arjuna gets into depression, and again, depression is also yoga because it's very well defined depression. He understands the physical nature of it, so there is some bit of quantification. There is a good amount of what-if analysis that he did, though some of it could be wrong. Little bit of what-if analysis. With the war, he is anticipating adharma will increase, and the bloodline will go for a intermixture, will go for a corruption. The women of the family will go for a toss, and a lot of hereditary practices, the kula practices, sanatana practices will be lost, like lukta pindo kriyaha and things like that, right? All the pitri karmas, all of these things will go for a toss, and these things are not good. He's quoting from the scriptures, right? Whatever he is quoting, he's quoting from the scriptures. And most importantly, in his Vishada, unlike Duryodhana's problems that we see in the first chapter, who keeps on ranting, right? The good thing that Arjuna does is he surrenders. So the three things put together, I think, qualifies to be called as a yoga. Even there is yogyata in the way the problem is defined, right? Many a times we don't even bother to look into the problem properly. And then the Sankhya yoga comes. Sankhya is the analytical aspect, right? An analytical aspect comes so nicely where the physical problem that way Arjuna called out, Sidanti Mama Gatrani, Krishna counters them, right? Looking at the Avinashi Tattva, like the Vinashaless, the indestructible nature of the Atma. Right? He brings those points very nicely. 20 shlokas, he goes on explaining why Arjuna shouldn't cry and why all of the points around the physical pain is all temporary. Right? Atma is beyond that. He goes on to explain that. And then looking at the dharma, adharma equation, the way Arjuna was explaining in his Vishada, Krishna brings the attention back to Swadharma. Look at the focus. Right? You don't have to look at saving the entire planet. Look at what you need to do. Right? And then, with the surrendering that he did, he tries to establish the Samabuddhi, the Stitadhi, being Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, properly resolute. Focus on your Swadharma and stay put. Do not get distracted here and there, right? So those are the 3 points that we see. And then the discussion also then takes us further into the concept called the Sita Prajna, Stitadhi. And he explains that, at the end of it all, it's the Sthiti called the Brahmi Sthiti, where we become completely one with the Brahma, Brahmadhina, and try to achieve the Brahma Nirvana. Right? Brahma Nirvana is that beyond the boundaries of the physical constraints, No, nirvana, vana is the kosha, the body, right? Nirvana is bodilessness, without any fear of the body, without any attachment to the body, without any scare of something going wrong with the body, moving completely beyond the physical realm, being one with that Brahma. That's the Siddhi, Sita Prajna. All of those other concepts are subservient to this concept called the Brahmicity. That is where the second Adhyaya ends, right? You achieve this Brahmicity, you will attain Brahma Nirvana, even if you practice that for a very little time towards the end of your life. Sitwa Asyam Antakalepi, even in the last minute, if you achieve that, right? Like people like Ajameda, a lot of people, Gajendra, a lot of examples are like they get into the Brahmicity towards the end and they attain moksha, right? Liberation, absolute moksha. And then we are led into Karma Yoga, chapter 3, where the question from Arjuna was seemingly a confusion. You praise Sankhya, Buddhi Yoga, and then you also are trying to push me to the Karma Yoga. And not only a simple karma, very, very ghora karma, right? The war is a very ghora karma. Tell me very certainly what is good for me, right? And that is where karma was explained very beautifully. So, some 10 odd slokas, the first 8 slokas of the Karma Yoga, the third chapter was around the inevitability of karma. Karma is happening, whether we like it or not, karma is happening. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtati akarma krita. There is no way to keep quiet. Okay, so do your karma. Next he says, yajnartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Anything that we do other than for the sake of yajna. Yajna is basically the broader aspect of consideration, right? I don't do anything for my selfish need. Whatever I do, if karma is inevitable, if action is inevitable, whatever I do it for the broader sake. Whatever I do for my selfish sake is karma bandhana, has binding, right? I have, vyapara happening there. But when I do things for the larger sake, broader sake, the societal sake, the worldly sake, no, I don't have any karma bandhana. So yajna artha karma. And he explains the yajna chakra, like, how interconnected this entire world is, right? And then finally he goes on to explain further that also do it for the sake of loka sangraha, for the sake of welfare of the people. And he gives his own example why he doesn't have any duty, but still he does things like a normal ordinary person only for the sake of welfare of the society. And then he also teaches him tattva. When I look at the tattva, things are having their own affinity, aversions, and things like that. Don't bother about them. Forget everything. Just do your duty. Karma Yoga culminates with that point where you surrender everything to me and then do your duty. But then Arjuna's question was very, very intelligent, right? He asks this question. We all understand the importance of duty, but why do we go wrong? What is it that is forcibly taking us away from our sense of duty? Right? That is where Arjuna was told that this is all because of the Rajoguna. The samsara is so laden with the Rajoguna, which then leads us to the kama, krodhatmaka bhavas. That will take us away, and they will create the ajnana. Ajnana around the indriyas, ajnana around the manas, ajnana around the buddhi. Right? These are the three areas where the kama, krodha will have its effect, and that will completely cloud us, and that is what will take you away from performing your duties. And that's the reason why you have to understand that para. Para is that superior. Para is also the enemy. Understand that para, who can then control your buddhi, manas, and the indriya. Right? That's where we end the karma yoga. Right? Fourth chapter continues with the same paratattva, elaboration of the paratattva, which will eventually lead into paramatma tattva, where Paramatma talks about himself a little bit more, like how he has been teaching this divine yoga, eternal yoga, for a lot of paramparic traditions, like from Vivaswan to Manu to Ikshvaku to various further Rajarshis who came down that lineage. And how that entire thing pans out to the fact that whatever dharma adharma goes very high, he is the one who also takes the avatara. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati. All of that concepts come in that the fourth adhyaya when he explains the Paramatma Tattva. And then the fourth adhyaya, in the one section, he tells very clearly, this is what all your ancestors have also understood, my Paramatma Tattva, and they just focused on performing their duty. You also should do the same thing. Right? That is one level of awareness, like what can go wrong and how to overcome that, which is understanding that the worst possible risk is me abdicating my responsibilities. Can't be bigger risk than that. I have to come back home with money in my hand to feed my family, and suddenly I run away. Right? That's the biggest risk. Now, every other risk will go for a toss when I am running away from performing my core duties, right? And then how to overcome that, offer myself to the Paramatma. Like, everything, understand the Paramatma Tattva and then do the things. Then the next piece of awareness comes in terms of what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do. What to do, what to refrain from. Kim karma, kim akarma. Iti kavayaha api mohitaha. Even the most intelligent people will fail to understand what's the right thing to do, what's the right thing to refrain from, right? What to do, what not to do, right? And that is where he says, be a buddhivan. Find karma in akarma, akarma in karma. Right? Karmanya karma yah pashyet akarmani cha karma yah. He is the buddhiman manusheshu sayukta kritna karma kriti. Right? And then buddhiman, the type of buddhiman people who don't have any attachment, who see play in work and the sense of responsibility while even on recreation. That's the kind of concept, right? And with such people, they don't have any attachment. They will do it for the sake of doing. Yasya sarve samarambhaha kama sankalpa varjitaha jnana vidagdha karmanam. Right? And all these buddhiman people are the ones who do everything for the sake of yajna. Again, coming back to the same thing. Now, the only difference between third chapter and the fourth chapter is the third chapter was more about physical action, and fourth chapter is more about creating the awareness of those actions. So one is the Bahiranga part, one is the Antaranga part, right? So karma, jnana karma sannyasa, whatever we will call it. So it's the extension of the same thought process. The third and the fourth chapter, they are a smooth continuation of one into the other. The fourth chapter does not begin with a question from Arjuna. It is the continued talk from the third chapter that leads us into the fourth chapter, right? So they are part of the same discourse, right? And then finally, the Buddhiman people, Krishna tells Arjuna that these are the people who do everything for the sake of yajna, and yajna, he lays a very good definition of the yajna, Brahmarpanam, Brahmavihi, like, everything is Brahma. Whatever is offered is for you, Brahma. Whatever is offered is also Brahma. Through what it is offered is also Brahma. Into what it is offered is also Brahma. Where it is getting burnt is also Brahma. Where it is all getting into is also Brahma. So everything, Brahma Arpanam, Brahma Havihi, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva Tena Jantavyam, Brahma Karma Samad, everything is Brahma, right? So he lays that very properly as the first point of the yajna being defined, and then goes on to explain different types of yajna that there can be, right? Dravya yajna, tapo yajna, yoga yajna, swadhyaya yajna, jnana yajna, indriya yajna, vishaya yajna, pranayama yajna. There are different types, niyatahara yajna. There are different ways of yajna, and goes on to explain everything that, all of this yajna, they are all karmajan vidhi. They are all born out of action, and jnane parisamapyate. They end, culminate in jnana. Two essential aspects of yajna other than calling them as selfless. They originate in action, they end with knowledge, right? And then he says, with this knowledge, you have to burn your doubts, kill your doubts, get up and fight. And this knowledge is also twofold. We get to hear a glimpse of that in the fourth adhyaya. There is a paroksha jnana, there is an aparoksha jnana, right? Well, for a thing that we indirectly learn by the help of the scriptures and the gurus. Tadviddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnanena tattvadarshinaha. When he says that, understand it by constant servicing the gurus, by being keenly, inquisitive, and then by asking, leading questions, like, you have to pariprashna. With these things, the learned people will help you with the paroksha jnana, indirect, because these are not our own experiences. When I sit in my classroom and study Newton's laws of motion, that is not my direct experience. Maybe some of them I can relate to, but not all, right? So some of the knowledge that we gain initially, it's all paroksha jnana, it's an indirect knowledge. But kalena atmani vindate, like, that knowledge will become internalized when we do more and more dharana of the same and keep our receptors open. Shraddhavan labate jnanam tatparaha sanyatendriyaha, with complete control of the senses, with constantly pledging ourselves into that path of gaining the knowledge, and with lot of shraddha. Like, when we say that, that nahi jnanena sadrisham, there is nothing purer than that knowledge, which we will acquire over time within ourselves, naturally, right? We don't have to. So once the aparoksha jnana comes, paroksha jnana, so indirect knowledge comes from other people, the only way to make it internalized is constant dharana of the thoughts, constantly pledging ourselves in that direction, constantly staying with absolute shraddha, and then with complete control of the Indriya. Indriya control is primarily because there are chances of us getting distracted, right? We shouldn't get distracted. Constantly stay there, stay there, stay there. Sanyati Indriya. Then over time, that Paroksha Jnana will become Aparoksha, will become a realized knowledge, right? But nonetheless, the Jnana Yoga, the fourth chapter, ends with the point that with this knowledge, you have to kill all your doubts and get up and fight, right? But we are now led into fifth chapter because it starts with a question from Arjuna. Arjuna's question is very simple. Okay, you tell me sannyasa, karma sannyasa once, and then you say karma yoga, right? Some confusion with what was spoken between shloka number 41 and 42 of the last two shlokas of the fourth adhyaya. You praise sannyasa, the renunciation of the action. Then you praise karma yoga, the nishkama karma yoga, right? Which of them is better? So constantly Arjuna keeps asking what is better, what is better. To eliminate the doubt, the first thing that Krishna does is clarify. Both are good. Sannyasa is good, karma yoga is good, right? But if you're talking about karma sannyasa, no. Karma sannyasa, karma yoga is better than karma sannyasa. You can't renounce action. You can only renounce the fruits of the action. That is not yours. But nonetheless, he goes on to explain, no, that there is something called the Nitya Sannyasi, a regular constant sannyasi. He doesn't have any special liking nor any aversions. He doesn't have any confusions. What is good? Is this good? Is that good? And he will swiftly attain, like, freedom from this karma bandhana, right? So these are so because Arjuna is constantly asking what is good, Arjuna is constantly, confused. Is this good? Is that good? And he is constantly displaying some special liking towards running away from war and some special hatred towards facing the guru and the pitamaha, right? And then he says, both the thought, the philosophical understanding, the knowledge, and the karma yoga, they both are the same. Only the inferior people will think that they are two different things. The intelligent people will know that both are the same. Whatever you have to gain in the Sankhya yoga, you will gain in the karma yoga, right? Both are the same. And very importantly, if you think of sannyasa without action, sannyasa, see, this is where we need to understand the word sannyasa. Sannyasa is not me, idam namama, where I am pledging myself for a greater good. Oh, I am here for the broader set of people, which is I'm more of a team player, right? One of the key things about being a team player is never give up your core duties. No, without your core duties, okay, ayogataha, without yoga, without your own action, if you do sannyasa, that is extremely dukkham aptum. It is very, very sorrowful. It will lead you to trouble. Whenever I want to become an extremely good team player, I cannot give up my own duties. That's the fundamental thing. The sannyasastu mahabaho dukkhamaptum ayogataha. But yoga yukta muni, the one who does the sannyasa along with his strong yoga, okay, Munihi, Brahma nachirenadi gachati. He will attain the Brahma very soon. And then goes on to explain, like, when you become yoga yukta, vishuddhatma, and then you do the sannyasa, when you see the samabhava in everything, okay, whatever you do, then nothing will attach to you, nothing will taint you. There is no karma bandhana for you. And then he then finally establishes that, so sannyasa is only one form, which is yoga yukta sannyasa. Okay, sannyasa is not ayogataha sannyasa. Sannyasa means you have to be yoga yukta. And in that he brings in a very beautiful concept, or rather, he reiterates the same concept that was introduced very briefly in the second chapter. He says, whatever you are doing, if you understand the tattva properly, you are not doing anything. Because it's the indriyas playing on the indriyas. Whether you are looking at something, it's your eyes which is coursing on the object that is to be seen. Okay, if you are touching something, it is your skin which is touching the object that is to be touched. Okay, if you are hearing something, it's your eardrum which is, getting its attention towards the sound that has to be heard. Like, if you are eating something, it is the food that is being touched upon by the, the jihvendriya that you have, right? When you are going also, there is a destination to be gone, and your pada is taking you there. Like, whether you sleep, with everything, it's the indriya that is coursing. Like, so second chapter, he brings in this nice concept, right? Avikaryo yamuchyati. he doesn't have any vikara. And I think people who are familiar with little bit of that Nirukta Bhasha, right? In the Nirukti, there are Shadvikara, people who do some little elaborate chintana of Vishnu Sahasranama also, Vashatkara. In that there is no na jayate, na mriyate, there is no astitva, there is no janma, there is no marana, there is no vardhana, there is no shaya, apakshiyate, there is no parinama, there is no metamorphosis, there is no change, aparinimate. There are six types of vikara, just beyond that. So when there is no vikara, nirvikara, the atma, you know, the atma is not doing anything. It's the bodily state, the sthula part, which is doing everything. Now, when we don't do anything, so that is the core concept of the sannyasa. Idam namama is where we are doing everything through the bodily instrument, but nothing is mine, right? We are all doing it for something else. Now, what is that something else? That comes in shloka number 10 onward. So, if the first 9 shlokas of the 5th adhyaya is all about yoga yukta sannyasa, from shloka number 10 to shloka number 20, that was where we ended in the previous session last week, is all about Brahmi Sthiti Sannyasa. Staying in the city of Brahma. Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha. By being completely adhina for Brahma, the one who detaches himself from all types of sangha, Vishayanusara sangha, Vishayartha sangha, basically karmani sangha, kartrutve sangha, hetutve sangha, karma phala peksha sangha, all the Vishayartha Sangha, Tyaktva, one who does that, Lipyate nasa papena. He does not, get attached to any papa. Padma Patramivam Bhasa. Just like how the Padma Patra is in the water. Right? And why do we do that? Because Kayena Manasa Buddhya Kevalai Indriyerati. When we do things only by the body, by the manas, by the buddhi, and only by the indriya, keeping them as separate antakaranas, right? Keeping them as different, separate instruments than from the Atma. No, yogi, those kind of yogis, then who become properly discerning in terms of what's happening, they will continue doing actions, whatever they are supposed to do, for the sake of Atma Shuddhi. Atma Shuddhi is basically all the baggage that we carry, right? From our past karmas and things like that, vasanas, prarabdha. The only way to get rid of them is keep on working, overcome the tendencies, right? And then, basically he goes on to say, when you don't have any attachment, when you don't have any parigraha, when you don't have any material attachment, you are very calm, shanti. You are very, very, peaceful in terms of the outcome. I mean, you do have the sankalpa for what the outcome has to be. There is no purposeless action, but the purpose is more of Brahmisiti purpose, for the sake of the larger good. You don't have any, taint coming under you. And then once you, do this kind of a thing, even when you do transactions with all the 9 doors of the body, there are Navadvara, Pura, this Pura Ayodhya, Devanam Pura Ayodhya, this body itself, according to the Taittiriya Aranyaka, this body itself is a Pura, a city of 9 gates, okay, of the Devatas, with Ayodhya Pura. In this Navadvara Pura also, when we do, when we lose all the attachment over the material, results and things like that, we will be absolutely happy. Sanyasati Sukham Vashi Sukham Arte. And then he is not doing anything, nor is he causing anything to be done. So that's the kind of a Brahmisiti. And then goes on to say, there is no kartrutva for me, which is primarily, there is no independent doership for me. Na karmani, there is no specific action for me, I have to do this or that. Whatever is need to be done, they will do that. Like in the karmani, na karma phala sanyoga. There is no attachment to the karma phala also. And whatever we do, if we do papa, that Lord is not taking them. He is not even taking the, sukrita. But we are deluded by the ajnana, right? So he goes on to say that, we are crowded with the ajnana that, we are doing all these things and things like that, right? So the only way to overcome that ajnana then is so the next 10 shlokas, from the shloka number 10 to shloka number 20, it's all about Bahiranga Shuddhi, which will at one point in time transcend into Antaranga Shuddhi also. Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nashitam atmanah. When we remove the ajnana with the help of the jnana, then we will start shining very bright. our on our actions will come out very, very nice, and will start having positive impact among a lot of people, right? So finally, we are leading to that section where we keep on doing the Antaranga Shuddhi. Keep on restraining ourselves from attachments physically, and then come completely under the adhina of the Brahma. Continue doing the work. Develop the samabhava between Vidya Vinaya Sampanna people, the Brahmana people, the Chandala people, the Gavi kind of the cows, the Hastini, the elephants, and the Shuni and the dogs. When we start looking at everything with samabhava, and samabhava, again, we spoke about that last week. There is a difference between samabhava and samavartana. We don't treat them the same, but we consider them to be the same Paramatma Amsha. Nirdosham hi samam Brahma. There is a equally harmless, partiality-less, Brahma inside each one. But because of each one's swabhava, the Prakriti swabhava, they display the Paramatma in different hues and cries. Like the light could be the same, but depending on what color of paper I put around the lamp, that different color will reflect out, right? If I put a green paper, the green light will come out. If I put the red light will come. The red paper will give out the red light. So depending on the original light is the same, but depending on the kind of a physical avarana, each one will display different colors, right? So develop the samabhava. Continue to deliberate yourself to look at the samabhava in everyone, and then continue to also control the emotions, like na prasushyet priyam prapya. Whatever good comes through, don't jump up in joy. And now udvijeta priyam prapya. Don't get dejected once you get something that is undesirable. So when we look at these 10, 11, 12 shlokas, right, shloka number 10 to 11. So one is, the first section is the yoga yukta sannyasa. Sannyasa is the state where we give up the attachment and constantly pledged in the yoga yukti, right? Constantly pledged in the action. The next 12 shlokas talk about Brahmi Sthiti Sannyasa, because it's not easy to perform the Yoga Yukta Sannyasa without understanding the big picture. So we start developing ourselves as part of the big Brahmi Sthiti, as part of the big Brahma device, and then Adhina, under that Brahma Sthiti, we keep on doing things for the sake of Atma Shuddhi, and then try to shine out, as much as possible to overcome that taint that we have, ajnana that we have, and start looking at the samabhava, and then absolutely controlling the emotions in terms of how we react to the good and bad results and things like that. This is all to do with the Bahiranga Shuddhi. We have to deliberate about the situation. Right? Now, this will lead into something called the Antaranga Shuddhi, and that we will start looking at from now. When we click on sloka number 21, I think sloka number 21 till the end of this chapter, broadly we can call this as the Bahiranga Shuddhi, or perhaps using the same words that are given within the Gita, we can call it as the Brahma Yoga Yukti. Okay, the sannyasa, it's called the Brahma Yoga Yukti. That is what we hear as a word in this 21st shloka. Let us quickly see what this shloka is. When we click on the link that has been provided in this page, we will click on that. So first is the Yoga Yukta Sannyasa. Sannyasa, giving up the fruits that, this is not mine, doing it for the team, broader cause and things like that, is applicable only when we do it along with proper yoga, proper karma yoga, proper nishkama karma. So sannyasa cannot be without action. The duty is still there, and continue to do the duty, not easy. The only way to develop that habit is when we pledge ourselves as part of the big design, the broad Brahmi Sthiti, right? And in that there are some good pieces of information given. And when we continue doing that Brahmi Sthiti action, okay, what are the benefits? What kind of an Antaranga Shuddhi happens? We will see now. You click on the link given by Shraddhaji, under the room title. We will come to shloka number 21 of this beautiful website. Now, this is a beautiful website put together by Dr. Sampadananda. We will use it for the sake of study, but we will not take everything from the face value. If one of you have any different interpretation of these words, do come up on stage and share with us. In the meanwhile, I will try to read it loud, and with my limited understanding, I will try to provide the way I see these shlokas, but do take the help of this website. Right? The shloka reads like this. Bahyasparsheshvasattatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukhamakshayam Bahyasparsheshu asaktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sa brahma yoga yuktatma Sukhamakshayam ashnute. This is the shloka. Scroll down the page a little bit. We see a section called Padacheda. Basically, the words in the shloka are split wherever there is sandhi. The sandhi is vicheda, like it's broken down. So, bahya sparsheshu asakta atma vindati atmani yat sukham saha brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Right? Now, these are the individual words of the shloka. Now we know for the fact that the shlokas will have the words in a jumbled fashion, right? Sometimes the words are jumbled, not necessarily the subject, predicate, order. Order is missing, right? So we put them back in the prose order that comes in the section just above Padacheda called Anvaya. Anvaya is basically the prose ordering of the unjumbling of the words. So it reads like this: Hey Arjuna, Bahya Sparsheshu Asaktatma Atmani Yat Sukham Vindati Saha Brahmayoga Yuktatma Akshayam Sukham Ashnute. What does that mean? Sounds familiar, right? Because Sanskrit is our own language. We can somehow get some meaning around it, but we'll come from that. We go on top again, scroll up a little bit on the page, click on dictionary. Hey Arjuna, Bahya Sparsheshu Asaktatma. One who's got asakta, who's got no interest in bahya sparsha, in any physical contact of experiences. Okay, bahya sparsheshu asaktatma, one who is detached, indifferent to the external experiences. Atmani yat sukham vindati, whatever little sukha he discovers within himself. Saha, that person, Brahma Yoga Yuktatma, who is constantly yukta in the Brahma Yoga. Akshayam Sukham Ashnute. He will consume. Ashnute is basically enjoys or consume. Ashana is basically bhojana. Akshayam Sukham Ashnute. He will enjoy limitless Sukha. Akshaya is indestructible, imperishable. Sukha, right? Happiness. Right? So that's the kind of an impression that we give. So, a couple of things, right? One is that, when we do physical deliberation and stay away from Bahya Sparsha, there is little bit of fun enjoyment that we experience. For people who don't do fasting, for example, simple example, if somebody does Ekadashi fasting, when we have not done fasting at all, we don't know what it is. But people who push themselves, deliberate themselves to go and do fasting, we will see that, they will be detached from any interest in physical contact. You play good music. I mean, people who do Nirjala, like for example, if people do Nirjala Ekadashi, today is Shashti, by the way. Some people might be doing fasting today. Also Shanivara, right? Some of the Vaishnavas, in the name of Vishnu, they will be doing fasting today. For all you know, we might have a couple of people in our own household who might be doing fasting today. See them fasting, right? When you see them fasting, we will see that they have no interest in anything outside. You play them their favorite music, they'll be indifferent. They'll be just focusing on Harinama Chintana, right? Nothing else they need. Give them some sweet, you cook something also they don't want. And that is not easy to achieve. No, it's not at all easy to achieve, because when we first time when we get into fasting and things like that, we will be extremely tempted, very easily tempted by, like for example, when we first start fasting, we will see that the whole world is conspiring against us by frying pakoras in a neighborhood. The people in the Facebook page are all showing food pictures after food pictures. It looks like temptation. So that's where Krishna says, right? Vishaya vinivartanti nirahara sidena. You will get detached from external experiences when you become nirahara. But rasavarjam rasopyasya, but of the food, you will have attractions, you will have the craving, right? So basically, and people have overcome that. People would have overcome that. But during the temptation phase, there will be cases where some people say, see, Ekadashi need not be nirjala, let me have a coffee. Then people say that Ekadashi need not be nirahara also. It can be palahara. Let me have one fruit. Right? It need not be palahara also. It can be upahara, where I'll have one meal or one light meal. Then some people say, oh, you can have sabudana khichdi, sabudana vada, sabudana payash. You can have all of that, right? Ekadashi. So there are different gradations, right? People end up doing that. People in the path of completely following the nirahara nirjala, they end up breaking the path and have the food. And we should see the way they kind of repent. Like, oh, this is the horrible thing to do, because the fun that came through in absolute nirjala has now got reduced. So this is something that mojo of refraining from actions, refraining from experiences, can only be experienced within. There are people who will experience that sukha, little bit of sparks of sukha, when they stay away from the bahya sparsha sukha. Okay, bahya sparshesu asaktatma. Like for example, there are people, people eat burgers a lot. Like, they eat a burger a lot, fries, burgers, pizzas. There are people who enjoy that a lot. And there are people who then firm up their mind, oh, this is absolute junk. The cheese is not cheese, it's all processed cheese. The oil is not proper. The potato is also not proper because it's all cultured potato. You don't see a single black dot in the KFC fry. So it's something horrible. So they kind of firm up, right? And they will, even though they are refraining from the experiences, they have some happiness within. Oh, I am not doing this horrible thing. Okay, they enjoy that happiness thing. But once suddenly somebody feeds them forcibly the KFC thing, or suddenly once they resolve, goes weak, and they end up having the food, they will start repenting. Oh, why did I have this? It was not even needed. Like, many a times people who stay away from junk food, okay, pani puri, like for example pani puri, they keep on firming the resolve that, oh, this is all bad water, this is all junk food, this is not going to help me, and things like that. But one day they will yield to the temptation. Like, they will lose out on that mojo. Like, they will think that, oh, why did I do this? It was not at all needed. So people who refrain from physical contact, when we force ourselves into such routine, there is some spark of a mojo that we all experience. So this is the prelude he is telling. So bahya sparsheshu asat by keep, and this is not possible for everyone. The other people who have constantly engaged in bahya sparsha sukha, they will not know what is that sukha in the asakti, in the asakta state of bahya sparsha. Okay, one cannot know the other unless we have done that ourselves. There is no way to experience that sukha, right? So Krishna is telling, and Krishna is very confidently telling, there is some bit of sukha people will experience when they push themselves away from the bahya sparsha sukha. And whoever experiences that mojo by being asakta in the Bahya Sparsha, such a person in the state of Brahma Yoga Yukti, okay, will experience limitless sukha. This is basically the extrapolation that he is doing, right? So, couple of prerequisites. Now, this is where, right? When we do the Bahiranga Shuddhi, force ourselves physically to stay away from parigraha, attachment, material attachment. That is what we spoke in the last 10, 11 shlokas. It's all about Bahiranga Shuddhi, right? Bahiranga Shuddhi is keeping ourselves away from unwanted physical contact, right? Unwanted physical attachment to the results, unwanted physical experiences of expression, happiness, sorrow, and things like that. Constantly staying in that Brahmadhina sthiti, Brahmi sthiti, right? So when we do that and constantly feeling that there is no kartrutva of mind, independent kartrutva of mind, there is no independent karma of mind, there is no independent karma pala sangha of mind. Now when we do that physical, we are bound to experience some bit of sparks of happiness. And this shloka will first thing that he does in the next part, where we are now led into the Antaranga Shuddhi process, is Krishna making this disclaimer. Whatever little sparks of joy that one experiences by staying away from the Bahya Sparsha Sukha, such a person, when he remains in Brahma Yoga Yukti, constantly, Yukta is basically engaged, constantly engaged in Brahma Yoga, yoga towards that Brahma, he will experience Akshaya Sukha, right? That's the kind of an impression we need to leave. And this is like a broad marker that he is placing before we get to hear what's going to come next in this chapter, right? Because it's all about Antaranga. For Antaranga Shuddhi, now he's putting a disclaimer. Okay, you will have limitless sukha of the same proportion. Let us see what Aurobindo translation says. When the person is no longer attached to the touches of outward things, then one finds the happiness that exists within the self. Atmani sukham vindati, within oneself. Such a person enjoys imperishable happiness by his self in Brahma Yoga. Okay, Brahma Yukta, by the yoga with the Brahman. Right? So little difficult translation this is, because they try to be as sincere and as direct as possible with the way the words have come out in the Anvaya. But we will we will find it difficult to read it verbatim, right? So we will somehow make it. But I think the translation is quite okay. Like, whatever little happiness that one obtains, discovers within themselves by being bahya sparshe asakta, and that is bound to happen. People who do try one day for going for nirahara, nirjala upavasa, none of us will die. There is some mojo that we will all unlock. Preferably don't sleep during that day, right? Keep engaging in the Harinama Chintana. There is some different mojo that we will all experience, and try to break that routine the next time onward. You will repent like crazy. Like, why did I do this? It was so much better in staying away from these experiences, right? If there is a different feeling, the first thing is that you don't need anything at that time. There is no interest in favorite movie, favorite music, favorite books, nothing, no favorite, nothing, right? When we go nirjala upavasa, we are not interested in anything, and we feel so self-content, like everything is within me. So try that. I think what Krishna says here perhaps makes sense. So prerequisite is that we must have experienced that small spark of mojo, small spark of happiness by being unattached to the bahya sparsha sukha. Only then we will understand the Brahma Yoga Yukti and what exponential happiness, extended happiness it can give by just extrapolating the same experience, right? So that's what the shloka is all about. It plays the marker to what's going to come. So we will see what will come next. So for that, we on the top of the page, we click on next. We come to shloka number 22. It reads like this: Ye hi sorry, Ye hi samsparshaja bhoga dukkayonaya evate adyantavantah kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. Ye hi samsparshaja bhoga dukkayonaya evate adyantavantah kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. So we'll see the padacheda for this. It is ye hi samsparshajaha bhogaha dukkayonaya eva te adi antavantah kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. Right? What does the anvaya sound like? Hey kaunteya, ye bhogaha samsparshajaha te dukkayonaya I adi antavantah eva. Hey kaunteya, buddha teshu na ramate. Right? What kind of an impression does it give? On the top, we click on dictionary. Hey kaunteya, hey kuntiputra, hey Arjuna. Ye bhogaha, those enjoyments, samsparshajaha, that are born out of contact, with the experiences, right? Born out of contact, like which is the bahya sparsha sukha. So now the previous shloka he puts the marker, be asakta from bahya sparsha sukha, and he's explaining why. Like because the bahya sparsha sukhaja, bahya sparshaja sukha, the sukha that is born out of our contact with external experiences, okay, those bhogaha, or those enjoyments, they dukkha yodayaha, they are verily the root of dukkha, right? Adi antavantah eva, they have a beginning and an end. Very beautiful, logical. Nobody can deny this logic, right? So every bahya sparsha sukha is a root of dukkha, is the yoni of the dukkha, right? And it has got a beginning and an end. See, this is fun, right? I mean, all of us, I think we can all experience this. When we don't have a chappal, getting some chappal is good, right? Getting some chappal is good. It will give me happiness, and take away the chappal, basic chappal, I will feel sad, because now I don't feel sad when I don't have it so much. But when I had it and something is snatched away from me, I feel more sorrowful, right? Because then there is a sense of entitlement. Oh, this belongs to me. This is what I'm entitled for. This is what I deserve. From a basic Hawaii chappal, move on to a little better chappal, right? Maybe something like a Liberty cooler or things like that. Go for it, right? You have a better chappal, right? It doesn't splash mud when you walk in the puddle and things like that, right? From a Hawaii chappal, a 100 rupee chappal, you move up to a 200 rupee chappal. That will give you happiness. Okay, samsparshada happiness. Okay, bahya samsparshada happiness, right? But you now move away from that Liberty cooler chappal and move back to Hawaii chappal. Hawaii chappal is still protecting the feet, but we feel bad. There is a degradation happening because the new chappal, the higher grade chappal has become the cause of sorrow. When it goes missing, there is a antavanta, like there is a adi anta, like there is an end to it. Like for example, not having jamun is not bad. Have a jamun, have a jamun the next day, have a jamun the third day. The fourth day don't have the jamun, we feel sad. Oh, where is the jamun? But when we never had the jamun, there is no way to feel bad, right? So the thing is, every bahya sparsha will create an expectation, and when that expectation is not met, right, that will give me sorrow. Like when Liberty Cooler then moves up to say something like a hush puppies chappal, then there is a different sukha that I get by having the chappal, but snatch it away, by Wayne Brenner or something like that. When snatch and take that chappal away from me, I feel sad, right? Don't snatch away completely. Replace that with Hawaii chappal, I feel bad. Replace that with Liberty chappal, I feel bad, because now I'm used to that extra cushion under my feet. Not only protection to the feet, I'm getting that extra cushion, right? Then move up to something like a Nike shoe. It'll firm up my shoe. It'll give me protection. It'll give me jump also. Nike Air, some new technologies are there, right? Where you don't have to walk. The shoe itself will propel you to walk. There are some new technologies, right? I really don't know what they do, but there are higher and higher grade shoes that are coming up now. All of them are bahya sparsha, samsparshaja sukha. Like they are all sukha born out of some contact. When you take that thing away, like it's going to be extremely difficult. Now today, some of us are used to some smartphone. Year on year, maybe once in 2 years, we spend about 50K on a new smartphone, right? Now 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Nokia 3300 was such an amazing phone, 3310 or something like that, right? That's an amazing phone. Like, we had so much of happiness, right? Now, can we come back to that 3310? We feel sorry, we feel horrible. Oh, so much of things have been taken away from me. So much of luxuries are taken away from me. So in management also, we have something called the Kano analysis. Some of the stated needs over a course of time will become implied needs. In 1900, early 1900, when Henry Ford came up with his first car, right? The first car did not have a brake. They had to keep a lackey in the front, so that when they had to stop the car, the lackey had to jump off the cart, the carriage, and then kind of bring the car to stop, full stop. Today, brakes have become implied. When I go to a showroom, nobody sells me saying that, no, sir, we give you brakes in the car. It's implied. And we are so used to it. Now, suddenly the brake goes for a toss. We are out of our head, right? So, our desires over time, they become more and more implied. 15 years ago, I still remember getting an SMS alert for every banking transaction was delight. Like, we were delighted. Today, we don't even bother. Some of us feel that, those SMSs are a spam. But take that away. We feel agitated. Oh, how couldn't you give me a notification for statement change in my bank account? Like, also, there are some agitations that will happen. So, Samsparsha Bhoga, Krishna very clearly says they are Adhyantavanta, they have a beginning and an end, and they are the cause of the sorrow. They are the Dukkha Yonaya. Okay. Bhutaha, the intelligent people, Teshu na ramate, the intelligent people don't get delighted with those samsparshaja bhogaha. Very clear. Like, na prahrishyet priyam prapya, whatever he said in shloka number 20, right? The logic is this: you stay in the Brahma Yoga Yukti. Stay away from happiness which are samsparshaja, like, bahya sparshe svasaktatma. Get that inner happiness which is staying away from that, because logically, when you think, all the samsparshaja bhoga, they have a beginning and an end, and they are verily the cause of every sorrow, right? Very, very logical. Nobody, when we look at into it closely, little bit discerningly, very, very logical. There is no way to refute what Krishna is saying here, right? So let's see what Aurobindo says for this shloka. The enjoyments born of the touches of things are cause of sorrow. They have a beginning and an end. Therefore, the Buddha, the sage, okay, the man of awakened understanding, the Buddha does not place his delight in these. Teshu na ramate. Right? Very simple translation, but I think the weight of the message is quite hard hitting when we understand that very properly. It becomes absolutely logical, right? With that, we move on to the next shloka, shloka number 23. It reads like this. On the top of the screen, you can click on next to move up there. Shaknoti haiva yah sodhum प्राक्शरीर विमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं स युक्तः स सुखी नरः शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुं प्राक्शरीर विमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं स युक्तः स सुखी नरः. Okay, what does the Padacheda tell us? Padacheda says, Shaknoti, Iha Eva, Yaha, Sodhum, Prak, Sharira Vimokshanat, Kama Krodho Udbhavam Vegam, Saha Yuktaha, Saha Sukhi Naraha. Right? The Anvaya, when we unjumble these words, we get the Anvaya just above, right? Hey Arjuna, hey Kaunteya, Yaha, Iha, Sharira Vimokshanat Prak Hi. No, Sharira Vimokshanath Prakhi Eva Prak Eva Kama Krodhodbhavam Vegam Sodhum Shaknoti Saha Yuktaha Saha Sukhi Naraha. Right? For the logic, he is now giving whatever logic he explained in the previous shloka, now he is giving it a better shape in terms of confirming what exactly it means, right? So for that we need to click on dictionary. He is telling, hey Kaunteya, Yaha, the one who, Iha Sharira Vimokshanat Prak Eva. Here, before the giving up of the body only, before the casting off of the body only, okay, eva, kama krodhodbhavam vegam sodhum shaknoti, okay, will be able to bear the vega, the, the speed. I mean, vega is basically speed, right, the velocity, but also the disturbances, right? Kama krodhodbhavam vegam, the speed of kama krodha, but one who is able to bear with the velocity, with the displacements, okay, with the kind of effect, physical effect, distractions happening because of by the udbhava of the kama krodha. The one who is able to manage these kama krodhodbhavam vegam, right, before the giving up of the body here, right? Such a person, saha yuktaha, he is the yukta person. Yukti, see, there is a different way. When the colloquial sense, when we say yukti is basically yogya, right? Yogya is what we say, capable. He is yuktaha, he is the capable. Saha sukhi naraha, he is the happy person. Right? When we look at them, see, sometimes when you look into it, look into things in a very, very literal sense, again, keep a copy of Amara Kosha. There is an app, right? App called Amara Kosha by Srujan Shah, available in Google Play Store. Quite handy. They have compiled the Kalpadruma, Amara Kosha, what comes in the Apte dictionary, what comes in the Monier-Williams dictionary. Some of these are compiled, put together. So look at them. Like, download this app called the Amara Kosha by Srujan Shah. Quite handy. And for all these words like yukta, all of these things, we'll get a different interpretation. So basically, what Krishna is telling is, iha eva, here only, like, the one who is able to, bear the disturbances coming out of the kama krodha before the giving up of the body, before the death. Now, this is very interesting, right? Before the death, we tend to think that we have to practice all of this detachment, disinterested nature, that sannyasa, that, like, being a yogi, constantly pledging ourselves for serious action, but for the sake of the broader good, not for our own selfish interest. We tend to think that okay, these kind of things are good when we come to the old age. But here, because Krishna says that before you give up the body here, not necessarily old age, right? Today, mortality is striking for people in the 30s, people in the 40s. I mean, I have had in my previous companies, I have had people at the age of 30s, somewhere in the early 30s also, losing their life, like, very early. We don't know whether it's a stress factor, the eating habits, but mortality is a question mark. After 30, 40, I think every year we live is primarily a luck factor, right? We have to count our blessings, right? Unlike maybe one generation earlier, 15, 20 years ago, maybe after 60 we were counting our blessings. But today I think we have to count our blessings in 30. So there is no time, there is no specific time when we have to practice all of these things. Krishna says, Iha eva, here alone, before you give up the body, one who is able to bear with the disturbances caused by the kama krodha. Okay, he is the capable person, he is the yukta person, he is the sukha person, he is the happy person. Right? Do it now. Don't plan a later date. Right? practice it now. You don't have to wait for sannyas ashrama for it, right? That's what Krishna is telling. Let's see what Aurobindo reads out of this shloka. Click on the main shloka link and then come down. Aurobindo interpretation says, the one who bears here in the body the velocity of wrath and desire, okay, he is the yogi. He is the happy man. Yukta again, yogi. Yogi has yogyata, capability, right? So that's way we have. Yogi is not somebody who can levitate. That's not the woman. Levitation is also a capability, different capability, but not 99.99% of the people amongst us will not be able to achieve that. Okay, I'll be happy to be made, proven wrong, but my view is that, not that way. Who can realize the third eye? There are different ways in which people try to interpret the word yogi. Not necessarily a person who has opened up his third eye, not necessarily a person who can levitate sitting under the peepal tree. A yogi is a person who is capable of executing the tasks very nicely, capable of bearing with the extremities of what is being thrown at him. Right? So yogi is the capable guy, one who can do things the right way. Right? And he is the happy person. One generation ago, 2 generations ago, when we look at our grandfathers' generations, I think most of our grandfathers were like that. They were absolutely samsarika people. They appeared to be, but they had much better indriya nigraha, much better, emotions, nigraha. They had a very firm control over their life. They were much more capable. They produced 10 children, got them all married nicely, got them all educated, made houses for all of them. But today we are struggling with one child. Right? On paper, our salaries are 100 times more than what they used to earn, but we are struggling with one child in terms of giving education. We can't even spend time on teaching them mathematics, right? So yogi is the yogyata, the way we have to see, right? That's the quick thing about this shloka. Again, logically, he's explaining the antaranga. Slowly, he's explaining the antaranga shuddhi, right? So iha eva, I think he had mentioned about this couple of shlokas earlier. Shloka number 19 also. Iha eva tairjitaha sarga. Here only will be won over the effects of the creation. Okay, by whom? No, samya sitam manaha. The manas is in the samya city, here alone. And nirdosham hi brahmam samam brahma. They will look at the nirdosha sama brahma in everyone. And tasmat brahmani te sitaha. Okay, and then they will be established in the brahmi city. So it's all here. Iha eva, here alone. Right? Certainly, here only. Right? That's the kind of an impression that we need to see. Okay, very scientifically, logically, Krishna is establishing the Brahmicity and how that should lead into the Antaranga Shuddhi, right? Shloka number 24, when you click on next, comes more and more close towards the Antaranga Shuddhi, right? He says this, right? Yontas sukhontaramas jyotirevaya sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuto dhigachati. Yontas sukhontaramas jyotirevaya sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuto dhigachati. Padacheta yaha antah sukha yaha antah aramaha tatha antah jyotihi eva yaha saha yogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhutah adhigachati. When we unjumble them, we get to see the anvaya, right? Yaha antah sukha antararamaha tatha eva yaha antarjyotihi saha yogi brahma bhutah brahma nirvanam adhigachati. So 2 words that we get to hear, right? Brahma bhuti, which is close to Brahmi sthiti, and then Brahma nirvanam. Now these 2 terms were last heard in 2nd adhyaya. Yesha Brahmi sthitihi parthana enam prapya vimuhyati sitvasya mantakalepi Brahma nirvanam richati. So he introduced both the words Brahmi sthiti and Brahma nirvanam in the 2nd adhyaya. So Brahmi sthiti is the Bahiranga activity, heated in the Brahmi city for the sake of Brahma. Brahma Nirvanam is the Antaranga experience, Antaranga Shuddhi. So how does that happen? He's explaining, right? Yaha Antaha Sukha, Antararamaha, Tata Eva Yaha Antarjyotihi, Saha Yogi, Brahma Bhutaha, Brahma Nirvanam, Adhigachati. Right? What does that mean? We click on dictionary. Right? Hey Arjuna, hey Kaunteya, Yaha, the one who Antaha Sukha. He finds happiness from within, not Bahya Sukha. We spoke about the Bahya Sparsha Sukha, right? Some Sparshaga Sukha, which is of the Bahya, not that Antaha Sukha. Like, Antararamaha. Okay, not the Bahirarama. Anta. See, Arama can be Krida, Vilasa. So the recreation, right? The leisurely, the relaxation. Antararama. Like, Aramyate. Okay, so uh, one who is relaxing, or ease, repose, the way this website calls it, right? Who finds it within. I don't need a nice Udyanavana, like, I don't need a nice couch to find that aramatva. Like, I can find the antararama. I don't need any physical attachment for that. Tatha eva antarjyoti, right? Antarjyoti. I think we have seen quite a few instances about antarjyoti, right? I think we started this entire exercise uh, with that 15th adhyaya, where natadbha sayate suryo nashashanko napavakaha. We spoke about that story of the conversation between uh, Janaka and Yajnavalkya in Brihadaranyaka. That is talking about antarjyoti, right? I don't need the sun, the moon, none of those. I think that kind of a thing comes in many, many Upanishads. Like, even the Shankara, Shankara Bhagavad-Pada's Ekashloki, Vedanta, that also talks about the Antarjyoti. Like, lot of instances, some of the practices uh, where we do the dhyana shloka of the Gayatri also talks about the Antarjyoti, right? You don't necessarily need that. So that Hridaya Mandale, that there itself we have the Antarjyoti, right? Within our heart, within our Atma, right? So we have spoken enough about that. Antarjyoti, I don't need the external light, the internal. The one who can find Antarsukha, the one who can find the Antararama, the one who can unlock that Antarjyoti. Very clearly, Krishna is talking about Antaranga Shuddhi. Sahayogi, he is the yogi, he is the yogya. Brahma Bhutaha, that guy is seated in Brahmicity, like, which is basically Brahmicity. I think by now we can look at two shlokas for references to understand what is that Brahmicity. One is we can go back to all the shlokas from shloka number 10 to shloka number 20 of this adhyaya. But typically we can look at two shlokas. One is in the fourth adhyaya, Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavihi, Brahmagno, everything is, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. That dharana of the thought process, very strong dharana of the thought process, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, Satyam Jnanamanantam Brahma, and then Brahmanyadhaya Karmani, Sangam Tyaktva Karotya. Those two shlokas, when we see, I think that Brahmicity, Brahma Bhuti will perhaps, become more and more profound. Like, when we constantly contemplate, do the dharana of that concept. So when you do Brahma Bhuta, then Brahma Nirvana Madhikachati. Now, Brahma Nirvanam has been called as self-extinction in the Brahman. I think physically that might be a little thing, but this is beyond the physical understanding, right? Because Vana itself is Kosha. Kosha is the Sharira. Nirvana is the state of bodilessness. So now, a couple of shlokas, when repeatedly Krishna is talking about Brahma Nirvana, there is some special significance attached to that term, right? So it is basically being one with the Brahma beyond the physical boundaries. In the Brahmicity, we are still doing karma and things like that. But in the feeling of Brahma Nirvana, it is beyond the physical realm. Like, we are constantly seeing that arama, we are constantly seeing that sukha, we are constantly seeing that jyoti, because it's beyond the physical realm. Nirvana is a state of physical, non-physicalness, like, bodilessness. Now, the best way to understand that is that, we don't have any fear of failure. We don't have any fear of fulfillment or lack of it. Like, there is nothing binding us. Brahma Nirvana is overcoming all limitations that are attached to the body. Right? So, adhikachati, he will obtain, he will reach that. Right? So, basically, to attain that Antaranga Shuddhi, Krishna is primarily laying the markers that, you have to unlock Antarsukha, Antararamaha, and Antarjyoti. See, some of you might have studied this book called Hatha Yoga Pradipika, right? The author's name is Atma Rama, who's Arama within his own Atma. Such a beautiful name, right? Antararama, like, Atma Rama. Like, that's we have that song, no? Atma Rama, Ananda Ramana. So when you look at that concept has to be internalized, more and more dharana. That is Atma Rama, Antararama, and then Tatha Antarjyoti. Antarjyoti is like, it is unlocking the light within. I think we have discussed about that through that conversation of the Brihadaranyaka. I think some of you who have heard the talks by Aurobindji under the Jataveda club, Mundaka. Mundaka also spoke about that, Jyoti, Tachur Jyotisham Jyotis Tadyada Atma Vido Viduhu. That Mundaka, there is a second value of Mundaka. I think some shloka like that came out. Right? So that Atma, Antaratma, when we understand the pure Atma, that is where we see the light. When we do the Atma Shuddhi, keep on eliminating the Vasanas, after Vasanas, we will unlock the pure self. The self-realization is ultimate Jyoti, right? We'll see what Aurobindo interpretation is for this shloka. Come back to the main page. It says, he who has inner happiness, inner ease and repose, and the inner light, that yogi becomes the Brahman. Okay, this is a little Advaitic. No worries. Becomes the Brahmi or Brahma Bhutaha. And reaches a self-extinction in the Brahma Nirvana. So Brahma Bhutaha, they have interpreted it as Aham Brahmasmi kind of a state. Okay, but this is more of an Advaitic translation. But Brahma Bhuti, the definition is perhaps better understood when we look into shlokas 10 to shloka number 22, where it's all Bahiranga Shuddhi, constantly pledging ourselves for the sake of Brahma Vishaya Sthiti, constantly contemplating, Tatparaha Sanyatendriyaha, constantly focusing towards Brahma. I think that is more appropriate. In that, if somebody becomes one with Brahma, we don't know. If that state is realized, so be it. We really don't. I mean, this looks like a little preemptive state, but nonetheless, right? It's a beautiful website, so we will apply that caution when we read such things. And there is an opinion coming there. Right? That's the quick thing about shloka number 24. Basically, three things to attain the complete Antaranga Shuddhi. Realize the Antaha Sukha, realize the Antarjyotihi, realize the Antararama. Right? And in that continued state of Brahma Bhuta, Brahmi Sthiti, we will achieve Brahma Nirvana. Brahma Nirvana is that absolute ether, beyond the physical layers. And again, physical layers are maybe Panchakosha. Some people know it through the Panchakosha and things like that. It's beyond the barriers of all the physical layers. Right? Now, that is the proper Antaranga Shuddhi. So, we can now see the progress happening, right? Yoga Yukta Sannyasa, the Sankalpa, how Sannyasa has to be understood, which is properly Yoga Yukti. Okay, Nirvikara kind of a thing. Avikaryo Yamuchyate type, And then it is about the Brahmi Sthiti. Now we are getting into the Brahma Nirvana Sthiti or Brahma Yoga Yukti Sthiti or proper Antaranga Shuddhi, which is a prelude being drawn to the next chapter. Right? So now we'll move on to the next shloka, shloka number 25. It reads like this. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidha Yatatmana Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Right? Now, you will see a nice mirroring happening. So whatever was explained in the Brahmi Sthiti, now he is now mirroring one by one through the Antaranga Shuddhi. So whatever was achieved in the Bahiranga, now he is contemplating, complementing them with the Antaranga Shuddhi aspect. Right? So in the Bahiranga Shuddhi, he was talking about deliberating and looking at Samabhava. Right? Samabhava, now he is the Samabhava, he is complementing the Samabhava Chintana with another aspect here. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Dishaya Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidha Yatatmana Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Right? When we look into the Padacheda, it says Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidha Yata Atmanaha Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Right? When we put them back in the unjumbled fashion, we see the Anvaya, right? The prose order. Kshina Kalmashaha Chinnadvaidhaha Yatatmanaha Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha Rishayaha Brahma Nirvanam Labhante. Right? The Samadarshana, where this will lead into. How Brahma Nirvanam can be achieved, that absolute, possessing that Brahma within the self or being that absolutely one with that Brahma can happen when we achieve some of these things. What do we need to achieve? Kshina Kalmashaha, Chinna Dvaidhaha, Yatatmanaha, Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha, Rishayaha. Right? What does that mean? For that, we need to click on dictionary on the top. Right? Kshina Kalmashaha. the one who have, the one in whom the stains of sin, okay, kalmashaha, are effaced, are reduced, are kind of watered down or reduced, right? Kshina. Okay, Kshina is basically thinning, right? Chinna dvaidhaha, one who have destroyed the dvidha, the confusions or doubts, like they in whom the knot of doubt is cut asunder. Like when the people who have destroyed the doubts or the confusions, people who have wiped out their sins, people who have eliminated their doubts. Yatat manaha, people who have achieved self-control. Yatat manaha. Sarva bhuta hite rataha, people who constantly wish for the good of all living beings, all creatures, who are interested in seeing the good of all. So that's the samabhava, right? Samabhava, samadarshana is all about samabhava. And samabhava are basically fourfold. Four are top four bhava, right? Sadbhava are primarily four. Maitra, Karuna, Upeksha, and Mudita. So these are the four top sadbhavas. People constantly think of the good for all creatures. Rishaya. Okay, those rich, those honest sages, Brahma Nirvana Brahmante. These are the ones who attain that Brahma Nirvana. And again, this is the absolute state of, Antaranga Shuddhi, where we are one in the state of the Brahma consciousness, right? So this is basically the conditions. One who have completely wiped out their kalmashaha, one who have completely taken off their doubts, confusions, dualities, dvidha, right? Or duality, confusions, doubts. Yatat manaha, one who have complete mastery over their self, and sarva bhuta hiterataha. See, they're all sounding good, but when we actually probe internally, it's difficult to achieve even one of them. Forget the four of them, right? Even one of them, very difficult to achieve. We have to perhaps struggle for multiple, lives together, right? Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says for this. It says sages achieve Brahma Nirvana, okay, in whom the stains of sin are effaced, one whose sins are eliminated, whose knot of doubt is cut asunder, who have eliminated the dualities, who are masters of their selves, who have completely achieved their self-control, and who are occupied in doing good to all creatures, Sarva Bhuta Hiterataha, who are constantly looking at the goodness of the entire Jiva Rashi. Right? So, Chinnadvida. So, this is the quick summary. In the meanwhile, one second, my headset is constantly dropping off. In the meanwhile, if anybody is interested in coming up on stage and sharing a couple of quick tidbits around some of these shlokas, you're welcome. Needless to say, I will not be repeating this. Please come up on stage and share, because sometimes what will happen is in some of these translations, we might be missing some very key interpretations and things like that. Okay. So that is the quick thing. I think on this also, some of us might have, again, from Mundaka, right? Chinna Dvaidha, people who have cut asunder the confusions, right? That also came very close in the Mundaka Upanishad talk that we heard from Bindoji or Binji, Vidyate Hridaya Granti, Chidyante Sarva Samshayaha, Chiyante Chasya Karmani, okay, Tasmin Drishte Paravari. One who has seen that paravara, okay, parapara, tattva, for them they have, vidyante hridaya granthi, like they have completely overcome the ajnana in their atma, and chidyante sarva samshayaha. So that exact messages, see, again goes to prove that whatever has been spoken in Bhagavad-Gita, most of them are primarily repackaging or directly quotations back from some of these Upanishads, right? But they are laid out in an order where it will help us attain that yoga. It's a yoga shastra. At the end of the day, every chapter we say this is yoga shastra, right? So this is laid out in a fashion where it will help us focus on that yoga shastra. Focus on getting better and better in the path of achieving yoga. And yoga is helping ourselves becoming better and better yogya purushas. we improve our capability in terms of facing the uncertainties of life. Like, because at the end of the day, life is all about uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen the next moment. Suddenly the power goes off. We have to see how to work around things. So we have to be constantly be on the foot, not bothered about, oh, why is this happening to me? Why is that happening to me? Why am I doing this? So that yogyata is constantly about thinking what's the right thing to do and keep on doing it. So in this chapter, I think that message is coming out very, very proper. Sannyasa is good, but not karma sannyasa. Yoga yukta sannyasa. Not easy to be yoga yukta sannyasa. Offer yourself for the brahmicity yoga yukta sannyasa. And again, brahmicity yoga yukta sannyasa for a long time not happening, not possible. So go for that antaranga shuddhi, and that is where we get that. Look for the antar jyoti, antar sukha, antar arama, and you will get it. Labhante brahma nirvanam. When when you are a kshina kalmashaha, when you are chinna dvaitaha, when you are yatatmanaha, like how he made a very bold proclamation in fourth chapter, like kalena atmani vindati, you will get that realization. Don't worry, go for it. Be yatatmanaha, be kshina kalmashaha, be chinna dvaitaha, and be sarva bhuta hite rataha, you will get that brahma nirvana. Right? So he put that thought very, very clearly. Now we move on to the next shloka, shloka number 26. Perhaps we'll be able to complete this chapter today and then move on to the sixth adhyaya maybe next week. The shloka reads like this: Kamakrodha viyuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmana. Again, brahma nirvana, right? So we can see there was a constancy of the word brahmi sthiti coming in the previous section, shloka number 10 to shloka number 20. And this section, we constantly hear brahma nirvana. So definitely Krishna is celebrating on what he spoke in the second adhyaya. Brahmi sthiti, stitvasyam antakalepi brahma nirvanam richati. You will attain brahma nirvana. He's explaining this. How? Kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. What does the padacheda give us? Kama krodha viyuktanam. Viyuktanam in some, vimuktanam in some other versions, right? Same word. Kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhitah brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. When we unjumble this, we get the Anvaya, right? Hey Arjuna, hey Kaunteya, Kama Krodha Viyuktanam, Yatachetasam, Viditatmanam, Yatinam, Abhitaha Brahma Nirvanam Vartate. Right? What does that mean? For that, we click on dictionary. Right? When we click on dictionary, hey Arjuna, hey Kaunteya, right? Hey Kaunteya, Kama Krodha Viyuktanam. Those who are delivered, freed, vimukti, vimukti, right? Those who are freed from the desire and wrath, kama and krodha. Desire and anger. Anger is wrath. Okay. Yata chetasam. Those who have gained self-mastery. Yata. Yata is control. Chetasam. Self. Okay. Viditatmanam. Those who have realized themselves. Who have self-realization. Those who have the knowledge of the self. Yatinam. Yatinam is the practicing. Yatana is constant effort, prayatna. Prayatna is all the same root, yatinam. Yati is not somebody who does no action, right? Yati has to do a lot of action. Okay, yoga and austerity, very beautiful. And austerity is like, constantly believed to be some of the vrata that we do, right? But it is basically the loka sangraha vrata. People who are constantly on their foot, they can't rest. They are constantly doing something or the other for the sake of the larger good. Like when we see people like Yogi Adityanath, they are pledged themselves completely for the sake of the worldly good. When we hear about stories of Peja Varshri and all, they are constantly on the foot, doing Padayatra, something for the Rama Mandira, different things. They are always on the work without any expectations. Of course, they don't have any expectations, right? Abhitaha, from all over, from all around, Brahma Nirvanam Vartate. Okay, they remain in the Brahma Nirvana city, right? So basically, people who have overcome the Kama Krodha, like ihaiva, shaknoti ihaiva, yasodum, Kama Krodha, like Prak Sharira Vimokshati Kama Krododbhavam Vegam Shaknoti. Sodam Shaknoti. The Kama Krodha Yuktana, people who have overcome the Kama Krodha. Yata Chetasam, people. So the summary of all the things that we spoke, right? Yata Chetasam, Viditatmana, people who have realized themselves. Yatina, people who are constantly under work. Okay, Abhitaha Brahma Nirvanam Vartate. From all sides, from all aspects, they will constantly remain in Brahma Nirvana, right? That bodilessness. Aurobindo interpretation reads, Yatis, those who practice self-mastery by yoga and austerity. Okay, basically people who are constantly working nishkama way. Yatis, who are delivered from kama and krodha and have gained self-mastery, yata chetasam. For them, nirvana in Brahma exists all about them. Abhitaha encompasses them. Abhitaha, right? They already live in it because they have the knowledge of the self. No, Viditatmana, right? I think there is some bit of ordering change according to this website, but shouldn't really make a difference, right? Viditatmana, Yata Chetasam, Kama Krodha Yuktana. Okay, all of them are the same. Right? When we have completely overcome Kama Krodha Yukti, we are the Yatis. When we are proper Yatis, we have overcome Kama Krodha Yukti. We have become Yata Chetas. We have become Viditatmana. So it's all one and the same. When we look into it in the holistic sense, any one single aspect cannot happen without the other. They will become part of the package, right? So need not be one leading into the other. In the absolute sense, they all are converging into the same point, Brahma Nirvana point. Right? So we can move on to the next shloka, shloka number 27. It reads like this. Sparshan kritva bahirbahyans chakshuschaivantare bhuvo pranapano samo kritva nasabhyantaracharina. So now here he is in the antaranga shuddhi. There are problems that we might face, right? Because it's not easy again. He is now subtly giving hint to some of the techniques. Sparshan kritva bahirbahyan chakshuschaivantare bhruvohu pranapano samo kritva nasa bhyantaracharino. The padacheda sparshan kritva bahihi bahyan chakshuhu cha eva antare bhruvohu prana apano samo kritva nasa abhyantaracharino. Right? What does the Anvaya tell us? It says the Anvaya is incomplete. The next shloka has to be brought in together, but we will see the half Anvaya, right? Bahyan sparshan bahihi kritva. Now again, summary, right? After having given up your bahya sparsha, bahya. Okay, bahyan sparshan bahihi kritva. Chakshuhu bhruvoho antare kritva eva. Eva chakshuhu bhruvoho antare kritva. Nasa abhyantara charinau prana apanau samaucha kritva. What does that mean? Bahyan, so we click on dictionary. Bahyan sparshan bahihi kritva. Keeping all the bahya sparsha, the external contacts in the external place only. That's not mine. Somebody is trying pakoda, okay, that pakoda is outside, not mine. Okay, somebody is trying to go for a rock concert, okay, that rock concert is happening there, not mine. Somebody is hearing a nice musical recitation of MS Subbalakshmi, okay, that is there. Surya Gayatri, okay, that is not there, not mine. All the bahya sparsha bahihi kritva. Right? Keep all the, so that was where we started the Brahma Yoga Yukti, right? The Brahma Nirvana Sthiti, the Antaranga Shuddhi process started with keeping all the Bahya Sparsheshu Asaktatma. Now, what do we do by understanding all of this logic? And again, it's not easy, right? So logic helps us come to the resolve, but the resolve has to be kept intact, constantly intact. Now, he's slowly revealing some technique which will be much more elaborated in the next chapter. The next chapter is not a separate conversation. There is no interjection. There is no middle conversation from Arjuna. Arjuna's same question that we heard in the first shloka of this chapter is being answered, right? But he is now introducing a concept. Okay. Once you keep your Bahyat Sparshan Bahi, once you keep all your external contacts in external layer itself, Chakshuhu Eva Bhruvohu Antare Kritva, and verily keep your eyes focused on the Bhruvohu Antare, in between the eyebrows. Right? Focus on your And this is the thing, like when you see proper yogis, you will see them like they are activating the third eye. Third eye is at the center of the forehead, right, between the eyebrows. And whenever we feel out of focus, out of concentration, just try getting the attention towards that. No, relax the eyeballs, but try to get the attention towards that. Sometimes the eyes might look droopy. Sometimes it might look like as though we are stoned. Right? That's how the appearance might look like when we try to focus on the third eye. But do that. I think the focus will come immediate. And just Google for third eye concentration. I think there are some videos available. I'm sure there are some videos available, right? So look at that. But basically, once you keep the external contacts outside and focus on the third eye. Okay, Dhruvoho madhye chakshu kritva. Okay, nasa abhyantara charino, moving within the nostrils, prana apano samo kritva. Relax on your breath. Don't feel like you're palpitating. Don't have uneven breathing patterns. Get relaxed completely. Focus on the breath. Get it completely relaxed. So whenever we do the Bahiranga Shuddhi, when we try to deliberate on the Bahiranga Shuddhi, there are distractions. This Rajoguna of the basic nature of samsara is trying to distract us. And whenever that happens, Krishna is giving three techniques. One is focus on the third eye, activate the third eye. Second thing is, focus on the breath and make sure you create evenness of the breath. Samo kritva, both the intake, inhalation, exhalation. Okay, puraka, rechaka, prana, apana, samo kritva, nasa abhyantara charinam. Okay, moving between the prana, apana that are moving within your nostrils, which is focus on the nostrils, focus on the breath, make sure you relax the breath, make them even. Then what? I think we'll go on to the next shloka. Let's quickly see what Aurobindo interprets for this shloka before we move on. So this is basically a technique given, right? Because Antaranga Shuddhi is not easy. Many a times when we do the physical deliberation of keeping ourselves devoid of physical contact or physical experiences for fun, there are distractions. Now this is the slow technique. Focus on the third eye, focus on the breath. Bring them to stability. When somebody is trying to tease you into watching a movie, when you want to stay away from watching a movie, so focus on the third eye. You say firmly no. When you focus back on the firm eye, your buddhi, all of these things will come back. And this is one of the simplest technique. Okay, when somebody is trying to honey trap you, when somebody is trying to lure you, when something is trying to distract you, activate the third eye chakra. Okay, activate the third eye chakra. Focus on the breath and bring it to equanimity. Aurobindo says that having put outside of himself all outward touches and concentrated the vision between the eyebrows and made equal the prana and apana moving through the nostrils, having controlled the senses. Okay, this is the next shloka. Okay, having controlled the senses, the devoted sage to liberation is ever free. Okay, that is the way. Basically having controlled the senses is one aspect that we'll see in the next shloka, but we'll see the next shloka, right? Because it's mixing up the two. When you see more of this. So next shloka reads like this, shloka number 28. Yatendriyamano buddhir munir moksha parayanah vigate cha bhayakrodho yas sada mukta eva saha. Right? Yatendriyamano buddhir munir moksha parayanah vigate cha bhayakrodho yas sada mukta eva saha. Right? Padacheda yata indriya manaha buddhi munihi moksha parayana vigata ichha bhaya krodha yah sada mukta eva saha. So by using that technique, whatever was told, right, constantly whenever you get distracted, focus on the third eye, come back to the senses, right, focus on the third eye. Now you have exam tomorrow, you're not supposed to watch movies, a good program is coming, focus on the third eye. Okay, constantly focus on the breath, you'll be relaxed and some bit of your urge to watch the movie will drop, right? So basically whatever is spoken in the previous shloka, now continue with this, right? Yata indriya manaha buddhihi munihi moksha parayanaha vigata ichha bhaya krodha yah sada mukta eva saha. When we put back into the anvaya, yaha yata indriya manaha buddhihi moksha parayanaha vigata ichha bhaya krodha saha munihi sada mukta eva. Okay, coming back from the previous shloka, focus on the third eye, concentrate on the breath, and keep the prana apana in balance. Right? Do not get them agitated. Do not let them go out of balance and things like that, right? So, and in that state, the one who yaha yata indriya manaha buddhi, because indriya manaha buddhi are the three adhisthana of the kama krodha. He explains that in the third adhyaya, right? Indriyani mano buddhi rasya adhisthana muchyate of kama krodha. So the best way to control them, the technique that he's mentioned, right? Bahya sparshan bahihi kritva nasabhyantara charino pranapano samo kritva. Okay. Chakshu bhruvoho madhye eva kritva. Focus on the third eye. In that sense, control your indriya manaha buddhi and be moksha parayana. Constantly look at moksha. Liberation from what is the question, right? So far, whenever we hear the word moksha, mukti, it is all from sarva tvapaihi pramuchyate. Ashubhat, mokshate, ashubhat. It's all about confusion. Mukti is from the confusion, dvandva, ashubha, shubha, ashubha, shubha, shubha palaireva, mokshase karma. No. So you will see that thing constantly repeating. So moksha has to be understood from the thought. Kim karma kima the fourth adhyaya, in the previous chapter we saw that. Kim karma kima karmeti kavayo kyatra mohita tatte karma pravakshyami yajnatva mokshate ashubhat. So moksha is from ashubha, is something that we need to understand. At least so far in Bhagavad-Gita, there is no other form of mukti. Mukti is only from ashubha, not from, there is some samsarika mukti. Samsarika mukti is because samsara is filled with confusion. The natural energy of samsara is kshipta, the pancha mano vritti. When we see, the basic is the kshipta. It's all scattered. The thoughts are scattered, energies are scattered, confusions prevail. Right? So mukta, moksha parayanaha, one who constantly seeks moksha from ashubha, from papa, from the thought of the duality, right? Vigata ichha bhaya krodha. That's the best way to overcome the ichha bhaya krodha. This is the definition of Sitadhi, right? Because we spoke about it. Second Adhyaya, when Krishna has asked this question from Arjuna, what is this Sita Prajna? How does it look? Why does he walk? Why does he sit? Why does he move? All of that, right? What does he think? Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Sitadhihi Muniruchyate. One who has overcome Raga Bhaya Krodha. Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. So here he says, Ichha Bhaya Krodha Vigataha. Overcome that in the state of Sitadhi. That Munihi Sada Muktaha Evataha. That guy, that Muni is Mananath, right? Manu, like the one Muni, that Muni is Mukta Eva, is liberated alone. Liberated from the attachment, the problems, the confusions, the doubts. You are completely liberated, you are free. Okay, because now this is the Brahma Nirvana Sthiti. If you really want to achieve that complete Brahma Nirvana Sthiti, this is the state you have to be. Completely, Yatendriya Manobuddhi, completely moksha parayanaha, completely ichha bhaya krodha vigataha. Overcome that ichha bhaya krodha. This state of Brahma Nirvana is the actual mukti sthiti. And in this sthiti, there is a very important thing that will come. We'll see in the final shloka. I think it's 934, but we'll complete one more shloka before we close further, so that logically we have completed one chapter, right? So before that, we'll quickly see Aurobindo interpretation. Having controlled the senses, the mind, and the understanding intellect, and the sage devoted to liberation, from whom desire and trap, kama, krodha, and fear, bhaya, have passed away, vigataha, he is ever free in the state of Brahma Nirvana, like body beyond the boundaries, the shackles of the physicality, the material plane of the body. Like absolutely, when we say overcome the fear factor, get out of the comfort zone. Comfort zone is basically the kosha. The vana is the comfort zone. Move out of that. Right? Brahmi sthiti, that's Brahma Nirvana sthiti. Right? And whenever you find difficulty, two techniques very clearly, three rather, right? Activate the third eye, concentrate on the breath, bring them to balance, and then proceed further, right? Half our distractions will be kept under check when we just follow that process. There is more of the yoga, dhyana yoga, that comes later, but nonetheless, he is giving us a nice prelude to the complete, inner purification, antaranga shuddhi. Now, we'll move on to the final shloka of the 5th chapter. It reads like this. Click on next. Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam Jnatva mam shanti mrichhati. Shanti, right? Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam jnatva mam shantim mrichhati. The Padacheda says, Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam jnatva mam shantim mrichhati. When we unjumble, we get the Anvaya. Yajna tapasam bhoktaram sarvaloka maheshwaram sarvabhutanam suhridam mam eva iti jnatva shantin mrichati. What does that mean? For that we click on dictionary. Hey Arjuna, yajna tapasam bhoktaram yajnasya cha tapasya cha. That's both for both yajna and tapas. Whatever is the yajna and tapas happening, the bhoktaram of the one who consumes everything, the enjoyer of all the yajna and the tapas. Okay. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram and the Supreme Bhagavan, the Maheshwara, the Supreme Lord of the entire all lokas. All Sarvaloka can be 14 loka, Chaturadasha loka, right? Basically, Bhuhu, Bhuha, Suvaha, Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyam. And then underneath we have 7 more. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Tala, Tala, Patala, Rasatala, Mahatala. There are 7 lokas, right? It can be 14, it can be 3. Bhuhu, Bhuha, Swaha. Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, Swargaloka. There are different ways of looking, but all loka, Trilokya, Chaturadasha loka, whichever way we want to see. All loka, the Maheshwara of all the loka, Sarva Bhutam Suhridam, the one who is the Suhrida, the good heart, or one who is nicely seated as a friend in the heart of every creature, every living being. Mam iti jnata, knowing me to be that, okay, knowing thus it is me, it is me who is the Bhoktara of all Yajna Tapasa, who is the Maheshwara of all Sarvaloka, who is the Suhrida, who is a friend of all Sarvabhuta. Shanti Mrichati, you will attain Shanti. See me as the. So again, last Saturday, somebody had this question in the chat window. How is he consuming? Now, he's not consuming the stula padartha, right? He's consuming the sara padartha, the essence of everything. Like, in the 4th adhyaya, we hear that, right? That evam bahuvidha yajna vitata brahmano mukhe. It's all activity. We are all in the mouth of Brahma. Whatever is happening, this conversation, this talk, the other nasty things we do. There are some toxic political discussions that happen in Clubhouse. Understand, all of these are happening in the mouth of Brahma. Everything is being consumed by him. Everything is feeding into him, right? Everything is being taken by him, right? And not all nasty things, all the yajna tapa, all the good work and the good austerities, those are being consumed by him. He is the Bhoktara of all the good things that are happening. He is the Lord of all living beings and of all the loka, and he is the friend in every, nirdosham hi samam brahma, sarva bhuta hite rataha, right? So we have the dharana of the condition of the thought that he is constant, he is same in everyone, in you, in me, in all of us. He is the suhrida, he is the ultimate friend of all of us. Iti jnata, knowing him to be thus, okay, shanti mrichati, we will attain absolute shanti. There is no kartrutva, there is no karma, that whatever I am doing, this is where Acharya Madhva keeps on stressing on this point. Naham karta, hari karta, tat puja, karma chakilam. I am not the doer, Hari is the doer. Okay, his puja, his worshipping him, karma chakilam is my work all the time. Tatrapi matkrita puja. Even there, the puja, the worship done by me of the Bhagavan, tat prasadatman, tat prasadat, it's only through his blessings, na anyatha, not out of anything else. So whatever I do, whatever we do, basically he is the one who is enjoying. He is the one who has enabled everything. He is the one who has activated everything. He is the one who is consuming it all. He is the one who is the protector of all. He is the one who is the Lord of all. He is the one who is the friend in all. That samabhava, to get that. This is the final conclusion of the sannyasa, right? Briefly, yoga yukta sannyasa. Sannyasa cannot be without the karma yoga. Then whatever we do, we then do it for the sake of the Brahmadina city, which is the Brahmicity. And in the Brahmadina city, in an elaborate, continued, relentless Brahmadina city, we will achieve the Brahma Nirvana city. And in the Brahma Nirvana city, we will see him to be the consumer of everything, being the Lord of everything, being the friend in all, that absolute Samabhava. Right? That is the state of Brahma Nirvana. So three phases in which sannyasa need to be understood has been very nicely elaborated by Krishna in this chapter. A quick summary of all of these three. Quick summary of the same things can be seen in the fifth shloka of the 15th adhyaya, right? Nirmana moha, jita sanga dosha, adhyatma nitya, vinivritta kama, dvandvaya vimuktaha, sukadukha sanyayar gacchantya moodhaha, padamavyayam tat nirvana padam. Right? When we contemplate on that and focus on that one shloka, perhaps we get the entire message of this entire chapter. So this brings us to the conclusion. We will continue like how the third adhyaya without an interruption from Arjuna led us into the fourth adhyaya as a continuation of Bahiranga to the Antaranga. Similarly, the Antaranga of Sannyasa, while Sannyasa is the Karma Sannyasa, that's why the chapter is popularly called Karma Sannyasa, the internalization, the Antaranga Shuddhi becomes complete when it leads us to Atma Sanyama, complete self-control. That is what we will see in the sixth adhyaya, which is basically an extended talk from Sri Krishna happening, addressing the same question of Arjuna. Right? So now we are introduced to the Antaranga Shuddhi. We are introduced to the concept of Brahma Nirvana. We are introduced to one basic, technique, that opening up of the, activating the third eye, doing the prana pana samakritva. All of that has been, we are just introduced that elaboration of the dhyana, elaboration of techniques for Antaranga Shuddhi. We will see in the sixth chapter, which we will look into from next Saturday. In the Namaste Vasudevaya Preyasame Priyottama Samasta Guna Sampurna Nirdosha Nandadayine Mukopi Yatprasadena Mukunda Shayanayate Raja Rajayate Rikto Raghavendram Tamashraye Bharati Ramana Mukhya Pranam Tarata Shri Gopala Krishna Priyatam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Have a beautiful week ahead, people. Have a beautiful weekend before that. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Jai Shri Krishna.